Hi, I'm Gordy Gundaker. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor podcast.
Hi, I'm Don Martin. Welcome to the Dirt Parlor. And this thing is big.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's episode of the Dirt Parlor. I'm here with my co-host, Don Martin, and we want to start out by thanking our great sponsors, Steve Martin with Nutrient Ag Solutions, Jeff Hoker with Hoker Trucking, Bo Popejoy with Hot Rod Septic, Checker Custom Screen Printing and Embroidery, Bodies by Skinny, and Reed Millard with Millard Family Chapels. Tonight we have a special guest, Mr. Irish Saunders. Been involved with racing for a really, really long time, has been across every aspect of racing you could think. Was a bigwig, we would call him, with Hoosier Tire for a long time. Now retired. We got to make sure everybody knows he's retired now. But Irish, we just want to thank you for coming on the show, and it's great to have you on here.
Well, again, Gordy, it's an honor to be on your show. You and your family have done so much for motorsports also, and for you not ever forgetting where you came from, Gordy, and your mom and your dad and your brother. I mean, this is just, this is awesome to be involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's Irish. Luckily for me, I've got to meet a lot of great people along the way, and especially, you being one of them. I felt like, I don't know how long we've known each other now. It's been a long time, and I can remember being a young kid when I was about 14 or 15 at the PRI show. At the time, I was going to run a Sportsman, and I went up to Irish and said, "Irish, I need some tires for my Sportsman." And he kind of chuckled and he said, "All right, well, how many do you think you need?" I said, just to get going, I could use, 4 or 6 or something. He said, "All right, well, how about you can have 8. So that was like one of the first times I had really talked, and I'm talking about shitting a brick just going up to ask him anything. And I went up there and asked for tires. So, let's get right into it. Obviously.
Did your dad put you up to that? Or did you?
No,
you think his dad put him up to that?
Tammy did, no doubt. Tammy,
For sure.
Tammy did.
For sure.
Well, that's, you know what though? At the time, I was just like, I got to make an introduction here. How am I going to do it? I'm like, I'm going to go ask for free shit. That'll really help me along the way. But Irish, let's go into your background, because you have a storied history inside of all of motorsports. Where did it all begin for you? In 1900 shit.
Well, when I was born, my dad announced races here in the Midwest, South Bend Speedway, Hartford Speedway, Warsaw, all these tracks around here. So I was a racetrack brat, I was born when I was 6 months old. My mom was taking me to races, right? And I used to, I always had these heroes, Denny Nairi from around here, and Dave Rorick, and all these locals that were here that raced locally around here. And when I was younger, my dad used to announce. So I would take the old reel-to-reel tape recorder to the races, right? And I would announce, as my dad was announcing, I would announce while I was up in the stands. So one day, I was 12 years old, and Louis Freeburn, who used to own Butler Speedway, and he did own South Bend Speedway, and he said, "Hey," he says, "I heard some recordings of you announcing, and how would you like to start announcing with your dad?" I'm like, "Wow, this would be great, So at 12 years old, Gordy, I start announcing. Well, at the same time, I started racing motocross myself, right? And I went through, oh gosh, my dad retired from announcing in 76. This was in 72. And I went announcing races until probably 1981 when I went to work at Hoosier full time. Now, in the summer when school was out, I still live in the same place now, but I was born and raised 2 miles from Hoosier Tire, right? So in the summer of 76 and 77, I worked out on the dock, loading tires for Bob. And then I graduated from high school and worked at a trailer factory. And I'm like, that's not my gig, So then I became a sales manager at a mobile home lot, which this girl I was dating, her dad owned it, but then I split up with her. So that went south. So Bob Newton calls me up and says, "Hey," he says, "I want you to do some PR for me. I want you to come to work for me." So I went to work for him in 1981, and the rest is history. I quit racing motocross when I was, 19 in 1979, because my dad said I had to pay for it myself. And I'm like, I ain't paying for this shit myself. I got to have somebody else pay for it, right? So
Right.
so I quit racing motocross and started working for Bob, and actually started, right at the very beginning. I started doing dirt stuff, sprint car stuff. When we first made the first step into sprint car racing, of course, we were doing, Bob was doing recaps at the time, and we started building new tires. In 1978, he started building his own new tires. He was getting them made from Mohawk over in Akron. But he started his own plant in 1978. But I'll never forget, we were at Oklahoma City, and Rick Ferkel was running our sprint car tires, and man, we knew we needed to get Steve. We needed to have Steve Kinzer. So Carl Kinzer had this tire, and Steve wasn't going nowhere, and he had a red flag. So he came in, put this right rear on, drove to the front, won the race, and the rest was history, right? So that was a memory there that I'll never forget when Steve did that, and met a lot of great people along the way. A lot of people.
Yeah.
Irish, during that period of time, was a lot of the guys in the late 70s and the early 80s, were they running Firestones, a lot of them?
Yeah, Firestone drag tires. They were running Firestone drag tires and grooving them up. And I mean, it got to the point where there was so much damn rubber on these things, they blister the shit out of them, right? So you got guys over there with carving knives, like you'd carve your turkey, cutting the rubber off the tires, to get the heat out of them, so they wouldn't blister as fast. So yeah, they were all running Firestones back then. Of course, when you ran the miles, you ran the old Goodyear double diamonds, But
Okay.
yeah, majority of them for the Outlaws, they were all running Firestones.
God, that's crazy. I couldn't imagine. Yeah, that's, and it's crazy too, because right, like you got to see it all from the beginning. You got to see all the stepping stones that Hoosier made throughout the years, the really good times, the really bad times, everything in between. And I feel like one thing about you, Irish, I think that I everybody respects, right? You are easily one of the most respected people that have ever graced this sport, but is that you always listen to what everybody has to say, not just the team owners, not just the track owners, not just the guy who's selling the tires, not, the racers, everybody. And, obviously, right, we'll get further into it in a little bit about kind of what the disparity is now. But, I feel like you were a massive part of the spearhead of what Hoosier Tire is and why we trust it so much today, I would say. And, obviously there's always things you wish you could do different, but if there was one thing you could pick out that, over the last 20, 30 years, you maybe would have done a little bit different, what do you think that would have been?
God, Gordy, I don't know. I lived a pretty damn good life, There was a lot of good people at Hoosier, a lot of good people, from the engineering all the way down. When I first started Hoosier, they had 15 employees there. That's all there was. But we had people that had passion, that wanted to win races. Bob Newton was so proud every time, and I was the same way. If you won on Hoosier tires and we beat the competition, man, I wanted to be right in victory lane with you and putting that Hoosier hat or that Hoosier neckband now in victory lane, because it was awesome. That was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think we've talked about this, is one thing I think that probably drove a lot of that, right, was there was competition in tires back then. You guys were fighting for drivers.
Yeah, you always had to make sure that you had something a little bit better than what the competition did, and the thing that was so good about Hoosier, other than the other bigger manufacturers, is we could just spin on a dime. I mean, Gordy, if you were one of my guys and let's say that Goodyear came out with something better this week, well, guess what? We go back to the drawing board on Monday morning and we'd have something turned around so quick that we could have something new the following weekend. That's how fast we could move. That was a big success, is being able to spin on a dime.
Yeah. Well, and that was a huge part of what racing was back then, because guys were on different tires all the time, right? I mean, I know my dad at one point was on a Goodyear deal, and I know that they went to East Bay one year and he got his ass kicked the first night, and he called and said, "Hey, we're not going to even sniff the podium, let alone hardly make these races if we don't have something better." And by the next night when they hot lapped, they had somebody drive down a set of tires to Dad at East Bay from somewhere there in Florida or so. I don't know exactly the whole story. I wasn't even around, obviously, but he won the next night. And that was, that's exactly what you're saying, that you really perfect what you were doing and be able to create something that was better than what the competition was.
Well, yeah, you're right, Gordy. And the other thing too, and you think about it, is I don't care what level you're on, somebody that's involved in your racing, this is their hobby, right? I mean, they do this for a hobby. When you get somebody that's got a huge sponsor behind them, that sponsor likes going to races and likes seeing his name out front, and it's a hobby for him to run. And I've always said that when hobbies are two things, either they have to be fun and affordable. And if one of those two things go away, they're going to find something else to do. And that's what I always try to keep it in perspective, that I wanted to make it fun. I didn't want to make it a job. We all had jobs, right? And that's kind of where we're at today, I think, with racing, is that it's turned into a real job anymore,
Yeah.
It's too expensive. It just, when you look at it now, and when Mark Richards was on our show, I always remember what Mark said: the local heroes are gone.
Yep.
We've priced them out. And, the Nathan Durbros and stuff, he goes, I don't think you'd hear of that guy today. Right. And it's really unfortunate. He goes, when people used to go to their local racetrack, they had Kevin Gundaker, Norm Cox. Your probably dad talks a lot about guys like that, Jerry Sifford, those guys. And now it just seems like, where is that guy at? Where's our local hero? Because if you're basically not on a national level right away, we're not going to know who you are.
Right.
Right.
That scares me. That scares me a little bit of where we're headed right now. It does. It scares me a lot. When I hear a guy like Mark Richards, who we know has just been through from start to finish, he's like you, and to hear it's like, that's part of our problem is, and how do we get these fans? Those fans went to the racetracks to see that local hero of theirs to compete against the best drivers.
Right.
And we need to get back to that route, in my opinion.
I agree, Don, 100%. You think about it, it used to be, okay, so let's say that Rodney Combs is going to come in and he's going to run against Kevin Gundaker because he's a local hero, right? And we're going to see where our local heroes, how they stack up against the superstars, right? And there was always that rivalry going on. At the end of the day, people want to be entertained, I've always said it before, if Christmas came once a month, it wouldn't be special anymore. So, Don and Gordy knows this, probably Don more than you, that, I said I wore 3 hats, or I was a part of a triangle, from a manufacturer to that we had our own racetrack up here in Plymouth, Indiana, to racing with my boys. So I knew all 3 sides of it. And it was hard to keep all 3 sides connected at some times, everybody's like, oh, I got to run for more money. Well, yeah, that's great. But the promoter's got to make sure that he's got enough money coming in that he can make it work also, and the risk versus reward anymore is really, really high, super high. You got your Knoxville Nationals and you got your World 100s coming up, those are Christmas shows, I want to say, right? They're going to be big, they're going to be good turnouts, but what about weekly racing? What's happened to weekly racing now? That's what I worry about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's tough to look at now, because weekly racing, in a sense, is, it's almost looked down upon. I feel like these days more, because it's like, oh, if you're not racing a national tour, like, are you really doing anything? But it used to never be that way. It used to be, because guys were like, hey, well, this is what I can afford to do. I got to work during the week. I got to work Monday to Friday. I can go race at my racetracks on Friday and Saturday, and I can still be at my job on Monday making my money to go racing. Well, now, if you're doing that, they're like, well, you're just a local guy. You're not going to compete with us, because you can't compete with us because you can't spend like we can spend. And that's a hard part to look at in the sport now, is I think everybody knows it. I think the more we keep trending what we're doing, we're turning more into NASCAR every day. And that's not the right way. That I don't believe in my heart that we should be trending that way, because, don't get me wrong, look what happened. Look at what's happening to NASCAR. They're losing fans by droves every day. And it's also because of other entertainment venues and things you can go do on the weekends now. And, there's a lot of things that go into that, but we're not helping ourselves by any means, because we're all kind of, out-dollaring ourselves in our own sport. We're all, trying to stand here and say, oh, well, I got more money to spend. I can go buy this, and I can buy the baddest motor, and I can buy all these tires, even though they're, this much money. And it's we're fighting each other, I feel like, at the end of the day, instead of kind of as a whole coming together as a conglomerate going, okay, how do we all make our sport as successful as it can be? You look at the guys like Bob Newton, you look at Bob Memmer, all these guys who built what we did. If I guarantee you, if you could have all of them come here right now for a week and have them look at what we're doing, they'd be like, you guys are fucking stupid, and I truly believe that.
Yeah. Well, Gordy, think about when you first started racing, all right? Okay, we can try to find the money and the level we can race at. You know what the hardest problem is? I hear everybody saying right now, I can't find no help.
Yeah.
I can't find any help. Shit, it used to be time that you'd say, hey, Gordy, what are you doing tonight? I don't know. What's going on? Oh, I'm down in the race shop. You want to come hang out? Sure. What do you got going? And people would come out and they'd come and hang out, and you'd get some pizza and some beer, and you'd work on the car. Now everybody's like, hey, what are you doing? Well, I got a softball game I got to go to. Well, I got a birthday party tonight I got to go. Getting help. And the more technology comes there, the more it seems like you got to have help, keeping things right, Yeah. Everybody can afford a level that they can race at. Again, you want to be entertained. And I look at Don and Gordy, one of the best racing programs that goes is Supercross. I absolutely love Supercross. It starts at 7:00. The first gate drops at 7:00. And by 10:00, you're going home. I got 3 hours that I want to sit there and be entertained, and that's it. And I want to be entertained. And how many times have you guys went to races and they have a caution and you just sit there and you sit there and you wait and you wait? When we had our track, I'll never forget this. I said, have you ever been to a rodeo before? The guy said, yeah, I've been there. I said, well, when they're loading the buck and shoots with the next class to come out, who's entertaining the people? Well, you got to have a rodeo clown. Well, guess what? We had a racetrack clown, and that guy would entertain the people while there was a caution or there was a spill on the track or there's some downtime. Zero downtime. Keep their attention. That's what people want, Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And that's one of the things there's a lot of different ideas that I've had over the years on things that we as racers alone, not even, promoters or series or anything, that could do a better job. But I think the problem that we all have now as racers alone is we've almost put ourselves on our own pedestal, right? We've built ourselves up to say, well, we are the show. We're going to come here. Just going out and racing is enough. In my opinion, it's not. I've never looked at it that way. If you ask anybody in our pit area who the last one is to load up every night, I promise you they'll tell you it's me. And there's a reason for it. And my dad taught me.
I know why, though. Because you got the biggest cooler in the pits.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Coolers.
Yeah.
Put an S on there. Coolers.
Yeah. And we always keep an emergency stash too. Don't worry. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing though, is I think also it's because which we all grew up in those in eras and different eras. But I watched my dad and Ed Dixon and those guys at Peevely sit there till 3-4 in the morning every Saturday night and hang out with the people who came to watch them race, and people that put them on that pedestal. They were deserving to be on that. And I'm not saying that there's guys that don't deserve that, but I think there's we're getting to the point where we're like I said, we're fighting ourselves in this sport. And there's a reason that people don't come to the local racetracks on Friday nights. There's a reason that even big shows now are struggling to get fans. And, we used to get them no problem. Used to fill the grandstands every night, especially local nights. And now, now you're having to do everything you can to get 500 people on a local night. And if you get 500 people, that's, a lot of people are thinking that's great these days. And, and so it's just a tough deal, I think, that we've put ourselves in. And don't get me wrong, there's a fix for sure, but it's going to take the entire racing community as a whole. It's it as much as I do, right? You've seen it with the national series, right? There's sponsors all over it. But the problem with that, to me, is everybody's got a hand in everybody's pocket. Well, who's going to be the first one to take their hand out of the pocket? Nobody wants to do that. And so, so now when we have all this technology and we have these things, well, right, you race with the boys. How much shit you have in your shop to go racing for a weekend? How many parts and shocks and tires and wheels and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that you're saying this too, Gordy, because I just got back from Daytona. I went down to watch my buddy Ryan Preece run at Daytona, which shit, I thought he was going to win the race, but he got hung out to dry there with 2 laps to go. But anyhow, we're going down A1A, and I'm like, man, I remember back in the Daytona days that at the whatever it was, Tiki Hotel or whatever, come listen to Darrell Waltrip on a Wednesday night, talk to the fans, right? Come listen to Dale Earnhardt talk to the fans. Come listen to Sterling Marlin, whoever. And I'm like, now there's no interaction. I mean, people love to interact with these superstars, with all drivers, I mean, Gordy, how many people come down to your pit? You say you're one of the last ones to leave, but they come down and you spend time with those people, and that's all they want. I mean, they just want to be part of it, Oh, absolutely. I guarantee, Gordy, I'd like to see one time you do this. You're going to have a fan of the week is what you're going to have. And that fan of the week that you're going to choose, guess what? You can be part of my crew. And whether it means that you're scraping mud or whatever, but see how many people, Gordy, want to come and do that and help you on your car. I'll bet you'd be surprised.
Yeah, I don't disagree, because we look at it now as if, as teams hiring crew guys, right? You're like, okay, I have to have an experienced guy. Not a lot of people want to take the time to teach anymore. There's a few guys out there. I mean, we just had Brian Shirley on last week.
Perfect example.
Brian Shirley's got 2 kids that work for him that he's groomed and taught them a lot of things. And it's been great. Right now, I've got 2 kids that work for me, Aiden, who's 21, and Curtis, who's from Australia, who's over here up through the world next week. He's 18. And I'll tell you what, I've had more fun this year than I've had in a long time racing because both of them want to be there. They want to be at the race shop. They want to learn. They ask questions like you wouldn't believe. And some people maybe don't want to do that, and I can understand that. But for me, I take enjoyment in that. When they ask me, I always tell them, like, if you have any questions, just ask. Like, I have no problem helping and teaching you anything you want to learn because at the end of the day, the youth is what's going to keep driving our sport, right? If all of it is just a bunch of old heads saying all these kids don't want to learn and we're not going to help nobody, well, eventually we're not going to have anybody. Now, I don't think that that's ever going to happen. I think there's enough adrenaline junkies out there, but I do agree with you saying, about bringing fans, somebody from the stands, right? There's a reason they're sitting in the grandstands watching these races because they love it, right? They either love the competition or they love cars and maybe they work on cars during the week. Maybe it's not race cars, but maybe they work on cars. And if they had a month in a shop, maybe they'd know how to work on race cars. But, Mark Richards, it's funny you said that about, guys not being in the shop. Mark Richards said that exact thing about a month ago on here that when they came home from wherever, they raced on Saturday, got home, and on Sunday, he told his boys to take the day off, and he was in there putting a motor in a new car. And he said, back in the 80s, 90s, hell, he said there'd be 10, 12 people at the shop all day Sunday. He said, I was there all day. He said there was not one other person but me there all day. Nobody come by, nobody anything. And
Yeah.
It is a crazy deal how much that has changed. But I don't know if it's because is the technology too much that people look at it going, I could never learn all this, or is it the willingness to learn? I don't know. It is a kind of crazy concept at the end of the day, but there are still young guys out there and women that I mean, hell, I'll tell you what, there's a lot of women who are working in our sport right now that work on race cars. I know Jason Fager's got one. I know Donald McIntosh has, like there's a couple, obviously, Heather with Herb, but just in general, there's people out there that want to do this. It's just given an opportunity, I guess you'd also say.
I think that's what's made drag racing so popular.
Yeah.
And it's helped grow it is the women that are involved in the sport. You look at it, and not only are they involved in the sport, they're kicking ass in the sport.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
And I think it's something that, and I don't think we go into there where it's man versus woman or anything else. I don't think we look at it that way.
Right.
It's just that they're that good. when you go to it. And the other thing we were talking about, one of the guys that we love the most, who's no longer with us, of course, Scott Bloomquist was very good after the races were over, hanging around.
Oh, yeah.
With all the fans. We talk about all the credentials and everything that guy did on the track too, but he was also probably the last guy to get in a hauler. He made sure every kid out there, everybody had an autograph. I don't know how many times I saw him on the side of Tri-State Speedway.
Oh, yeah.
On the side when you bring his car. He would sit there forever.
It's
and he loved it.
What's funny about that is Mom and Dad put up a Victory Lane deal over there on the backside of the shed, and if you won a national touring race, they made you go over there and take the car over and spend 20 minutes and take pictures and whatever. Scott that one night was there till 3 a.m, sitting there, just hanging out. It's funny because we were, after about 30 minutes, he looked over at Mom and said, "Can you at least get a guy a bottle of Crown?" And so he's standing there and he's just, but that's who, but you're right, it's who he was, and we have to have more personalities like that in our sport to help it succeed.
I agree. And Don, you hit the nail on the head with drag racing. Think about this: fan interaction. All right, fan interaction.
Right.
They can be there. I mean, I'm down there with Tony. We were at IRP last Wednesday, and he was testing. And I'm watching. It's like, man, the people can actually sit there and watch those guys change that motor over, right? Rebuild that motor right there on the spot. And again, I brought up Supercross. They got the fan zone. People go through the pits, and they can get their autographs from Jet Lawrence or Hayden Deegan, whoever it might be. So there's a lot of interaction. I think we're missing some of that in short track racing now these days, right? I mean, they used to have it. Here again, I'm going to date myself. When I was a kid, I can remember that a couple of tracks at intermission time, they'd open up the pits. You could go down there at intermission for a while in the pits, but then they'd kick you back out so you could be there. I mean, it'd be hard to do now, but still, it's that fan interaction. They're going to come back. Like I say, Gordy, I'd love for you to try that. Have a fan, a crew of the week or something like that. Fan crew of the week, and they're going to go back and say, "Holy shit! I got to scrape mud on Gordy Gundaker's car, and we finished third." Really? Yep. And he's excited, and he's telling all his friends about it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, you look back in some of the times of racing. I mean, I look back at one of my all-time heroes, of course, was Doug Wolfgang too, right? And Doug Wolfgang, Rich Vogler, I can still remember to this day, Rich Vogler, he'd want to know, well, if I got enough right rear weight in this midget, he'd go over there and physically lift the right rear tire off the ground, pick it up and lift it to see if he had enough right rear weight. And again, there was characters, Gordy. Gordy, you got to admit, you're a character, okay? You're part of the characters of these days in racing. But it used to be Naked Nick Gomrick. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
From down your way. Naked Nick, Schrader, Stan Fox, Kevin Olson. These guys were all characters. Not only were they racers, they entertained the fans too, right? And they were characters. And I think we're missing a lot of that because a lot of them, hey, I gotta be prim and proper because there might be somebody that wants to give me some money so I can go to the next level, right? So they're missing the characters in racing these days. I really believe that, big time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you think about in every aspect of motorsports across the board, you look back and go, okay, well, who was your characters that were growing up? Who were those guys? You look at a guy like Tim Richmond. The people loved Tim Richmond, loved him, right? He was a wild man. He was a playboy. He was all these things, but he was always his own person. He was never told who he was going to be, just who he was. The same way with Dale Earnhardt. You weren't going to tell Dale Earnhardt who he was by any means. And I would say that's really all those guys in the 90s, any of those guys. They'd started to change when you got your Jeff Gordons rolling in there, but he was still his own person at least. And I think that's something that is missed. I do agree. I say it all the time. It's like, man, why some of these guys give these boring ass interviews when they get a microphone in front of them and they don't even smile. And I'm like, what do you have to be pissed off about? You drive a race car every weekend and you're being streamed all across the country and you can't even smile for these people. Like, no wonder nobody likes you. Yeah.
I agree 100%. I mean, I don't know if you watched last Wednesday when they put me as pit reporter at IRP, right? And I'm still going to always call it IRP. But I had Schrader, right? And I knew that Schrader, we could have some fun with it, right? And we had to entertain the people. That's what we had to do. Then I saw Joe Gertie there. So I grabbed Joe Gertie, you know, talked about him. Then I saw Randy Hannigan. I had to grab Randy Hannigan, talking to him, you know. So, I mean, people want to know the in-depth things about what's going on in racing, you know. Man, I think, I mean, your dad, your mom, myself, I mean, we lived some of the best times ever in motorsports, ever. I mean, it was like always used to joke that, and I knew the answer about why you were the last one there, because Benny Laba was one of our distributors for Hoosier, and he had the biggest cooler. And there was, after we'd go to like the Indy Mile, and we'd be the last one to leave, but it'd be, you know, here's Gary Bettenhausen, Larry Dixon, Pancho Carter, all these guys sitting around drinking beer after the races, talking about racing. Tom Bigelow. I mean, we all enjoyed each other. You know, they were competitors on the track, but they were more than that off the track. You know, they were friends. Yeah. And that's what I think. I'd sure like to get back to that. God, I'd love to get back to that if we could, you know?
I know it. Well, you know, last year when I was supposed to have that race I was going to have, you know, on Friday night, I had a scheduled deal that 1 hour after the races on Friday, it was going to be a mandatory no loading of your race cars. They were all going to have to stay out so that people could come down and see the race cars. Because there's a lot of people, don't get me wrong, who can't, you know, they look at it and go, well, I can't afford to take 4 people in the, you know, in the pit area, but we can go sit in the grandstands. And then by the time they want to go in the pit area, well, fuck, all of us are gone. And so, yeah, and I understand, you know, listen, I ran the Outlaw Tour. I did the national tour stuff. I've done the Summer Nationals. I've done those things where, you know what, yeah, you might have a 4 or 5 hour haul overnight. There's a lot of times the guys will load up and leave when you got an hour and a half drive, or they're driving home an hour, and people will come down there and be like, man, I miss my favorite driver. Well, we don't take that as weight, I guess you would say, you know, because we're not thinking about it. But a lot of these people, they show up only to see one person. You know, maybe they just really are a diehard for that one person. And as soon as they go in 2 or 3 times in a row, that guy's gone. Well, hell, they're probably not coming back. So, you know, that's where we're losing fans, I think, too, because exactly what you're saying is we don't do enough of the interaction. We don't, you know, I think High Limit has taken a good stance on doing interaction, I guess you would say, their Durst Dice Roll and those things, and they get the people involved more, but there's still more. You know, I don't know why during these national touring events, why in the middle of the night they don't send the top 12 in points to go up in the crowd and just shake hands with people. I guarantee you they get a kick out of that shit. You know, go up there for 5 minutes. No, you don't even have to go for 30. Just go for 5 and go walk in the crowd. And, you know, I've always enjoyed doing that. You know, I love going up and walking into the t-shirt vending area, even in the middle of the race night. You know, I'll go see Savannah while she's up there. But just going up there because I'm in my race suit, and I know that maybe these people I'm not their favorite driver, but maybe they only see one driver in his race suit all night, and maybe it's going to make them become a fan of me. Maybe they're going to go, hey, well, let's watch Gordy this time, and maybe I'll do something spectacular. Maybe I'll do something fucking stupid at the same time, and they'll like me. But you never know.
You're right, Gordy. You're 100% right, and it's just that fan interaction. I think you're 100% right. You know, and maybe, you know what? Maybe KG and your mom, maybe they're going to start doing this at Tri-City. You know, hey, we're going to make sure that you guys, when you're done, you need to stay in the pits a little bit, right? And you need to interact with these people, and let's see what that does. You know, I mean, I know and oh my God, I'll tell you what, it's so fucking painful when we go to a pavement race and they open the gates at noon and you don't race until 10 o'clock at night. Holy shit. What are you doing all day long? It's 90 degrees, right? It's hot. Yep. You sit around. It's like, man, I want to get in there. I want to race, and I want to go home. You know, It was funny, Gordy, because somehow today I saw a picture. Trevor graduated at Plymouth Speedway. I'll never forget.
Yes, he did. He sure shit did.
And we enjoyed you guys coming to Plymouth so much because we always had a good time, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's what it was all about. After the races, we hung around out there afterwards, you know? And
yeah, we drank them. What did we have? Them popsicles or whatever that had. What were them things?
Oh yeah. They were popsicles. I don't know. I think maybe Nicole served them my daughter served them up there to look at the thing. I don't remember what it was, but it was like a popsicle, but it had booze in it.
Yeah, we had about 100 of them. I'm telling you, by the time we got done with them, we were all sitting in
like a Jello shot.
We were sitting all
shot?
we were all in lawn chairs, and not any of us could get out of the lawn chairs. I promise you that much.
Oh, that was something. But you know what? Those are memories, Gordy, that you'll keep forever. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many memories that I've got in racing. One that, I mean, there's good ones and there's bad ones. You know, the one that sticks in my mind that I just absolutely hate is that night at Salem Speedway when Rich Vogler got killed. You know, that was the closest I probably was ever going to quit Hoosier, because I'm like, no, Nicole, hey, Nicole, I got Gordy on here on this podcast. Do you remember what those drinks were that we had at Plymouth? That was the popsicle with booze in them, what they were called?
They were beer margaritas.
Beer margaritas? She said, no, they were like a frozen thing, Nicole.
That was something that they brought themselves.
Oh yeah, you hear that, Gordy?
Yep.
Nicole said it was probably something you brought yourself.
Oh yeah, blame it on me. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Good to
Yeah.
me.
Just use me as the scapegoat.
Yeah. But I mean, that night that Rich Vogler got killed, I mean, that was something that I was just, it tore me up. And I remember I called Bob and Joyce Newton that night, and I told them this, and Joyce is like, we don't want you driving home, because it was, 4 or 5 hours from Salem back home. And I said, okay. So just so happens I had this young driver. He just got his permit, and he drove me to his place in Pittsburgh, Indiana. And that was Jeff Gordon and Carol and John Bickford. They took me to their place, and I stayed there that night, But a lot of great guys that racing with, God, it just, I mean, a lot of fun that I did have was 1988 and 1989 when we were involved in NASCAR. We did the Cup stuff, right? I was doing the Busch Grand National stuff then. Robert Presley was our guy. And then 1989, when Darrell Waltrip, did you know that when Darrell Waltrip won the Daytona 500, he was on Hoosiers?
I did not know that.
I did not know that.
Yes,
shit.
that was the year. That was the year that Goodyear had problems, and Bill Elliott crashed, broke his leg, and Goodyear withdrew their tires. So we get back to the hotel, and Bob Newton's there, and the phone rings, and it's Bill Jr. He says, Bob, he says, Goodyear's saying that they're going to withdraw their tire. Do you have enough tires to supply everybody for the rest of Speed Week? And here's Dennis Sherman and Terry Newton and myself. We're sitting there with Bob, and Bob didn't even ask us. Yep, we're going to do it. And I'm telling you what, we pulled it off. We had trucks leaving Lakeville, Indiana, driving all night to get down there so we would have tires for the whole series. And that was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
That's crazy. That's pretty wild. I mean,
And I mean, it was good times. And then Goodyear came in with their radial. We didn't have radial capacity then. We couldn't build. We were still racing with bias, and radials were so much better than bias ply tires. And then we came back and gave another shot at 94 with Jeff Bodine. And I'll never forget 1994 at the Brickyard, the original Brickyard. Rick Mass sat on the pole of Hoosier Tire, right? And again, we tested 5 times at that place to get it right. We knew we had good tires. And Jeff was leading the thing, and Brett, his brother, and him had some kind of family dispute, and Brett got into Jeff and took him out. And I'm like, I was over it, And not only that, all my short track guys, my Jan Leedies and all them guys that were modified asphalt, they're just like, hey, you just left us high and dry. You're doing that Busch Grand National deal, and you're leaving us high and dry. So it's like, you know what? I got to take care of all these guys, And that's what I've always done. Whether it be, I don't care who it was. Gordy, you said it. I mean, if there was a problem, you can call me and I would try to fix your problem, And if I couldn't fix the problem, I'd try to find somebody that could fix the problem and get it right, And that's, I look back last October, I was at IRP at a Silver Crown race, and I walked into the place and I started going through my routine and talking to teams, and they gave me the, hey, these tires are junk, they're this or that, and I'm like, yeah, I understand, and we're working on some stuff. And I was traveling 2024, I traveled more than I had probably back in the Cup days when we were doing Cup, right? And got done with the race. It was over. I drove out of IRP. I thought, I got to talk to Seymour's about midget tires. So I went back around. I walked through the tunnel. I get up to the top of the tunnel, And there's a guy there, and he tells me, he says, "Hey," he says, "you're pretty brave wearing that Hoosier shirt in this pits, aren't you?" I'm like, "Well," I said, "it's got its days." I said, "But I said, we're working at it." He goes, he said, "You single-handedly are ruining racing." I'm like, "Whoa, wait a minute. I'm not ruining racing." He said, "No, your effing company is." And he shoves me on the ground and goes running out of the tunnel, blends into the crowd, and never saw the guy again. So at that point in time, my wife, Sheila, I called her and she said, 40 years, this is the most complaining I've ever heard. She goes, "It might just be time to retire." So then I get my little brother, Tony Stewart. I talked to him. He goes, "Irish, you need to retire from Hoosier, but don't retire from racing." And I'm not. I mean, Gordy, before I forget, I got to ask you one thing. Would you be interested in running a midget at IRP?
If it's got a steering wheel, I'll drive it, Irish. So I mean, if I would love to. I'll tell you what. After watching last week,
I loved it.
I hadn't watched a pavement midget race. I couldn't tell you, but I'm telling you, watching those guys last week, look, it was the most fun I had watching a pavement race in a long time in general. But them guys were driving the living shit out of those things. They weren't just him hawing around there. They were sideways and fighting the wheels. It was awesome.
You can see Sammy and those guys getting back and still doing some of this stuff. It's great.
Yeah. Well, and
it kind of brought back it kind of brought like the Wednesday Night Thunder.
Yeah.
Bob Jenkins and all that, bringing it back, a little bit. It's kind of cool.
I would love to, Irish. Absolutely. I would 100% be in.
When we're done, I'm going to call David Ward and see if we can set this up for next year, because I think right now they have 4 events scheduled at Raceway Park for next year. And then they want to do, because David actually owns a series, that All-Star Midget Series, and he's asked me to help him. And here again, Gordy, it's not just 1 or 2 people. I said it's going to be a group of us that make this thing strong and make it good. And when we first did this, we took the IMCA engine package, right, where we've got a $15,000 claim rule. So Gordy, if you think that I got something more than 15 grand in my 40 Focus or my Chevy Ecotec, guess what? You can buy that thing for 15 grand at the end of the night. So we put some ceiling on it. So now, I mean, again, look at 27, 28 cars, but the national midgets that run the high dollar motors, what they have, 7 or 8 of those, that was it,
Terrible.
And the thing of it is, there's more people saying, "Gosh, I can afford that. I can afford that." Now, I don't want to turn this into a job where I have to work on these things all the time, but I can do 8, maybe 12 races a year. That's enough, and I want to try to do it within a 3-hour radius of Indianapolis, so that you don't have to, get a hotel. It keeps the expense down. You can get done early enough, load up, come on back home, right? But, when they did the hero race, that was great. And I could tell right then that Tony he said he had so much fun doing it, and unfortunately Ron Capps' accident with Sammy and everything, that was pretty bad. And that kind of shut it down, because Austin Prock, I saw him last week and he was looking forward so bad, but John said, John Force said, "No, you can't run these midgets. It's a week before the nationals and you got to be good at that,
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. And there again, we want to keep fun back in this racing, Yeah. So definitely, Gordy, I need to get you in a car next year.
Irish, I'd absolutely do it in a heartbeat. I'm telling you, when I watched it, it would look like, for one, it looked like a blast, because like I said, these guys, they were driving those things. Like, they were racing them hard. They were all over the place. I felt bad for the guy. I can't remember which guy it was. They blew a motor up though, running second, I think, the 88 car.
That was it was Jake Trainer, the 29 car, Seymour's car.
Yep, that's what it was. Yep.
Yeah, he blew a motor. He's the one that when they were doing my race down there, Garrett, he got out of the car for Jake so he could run it, and he started 22nd and was up to 4th before the battery went dead. Kid's got some talent, and he's a good kid too. He's a really good kid, Yeah. Now, the real challenge is going to be, Gordy, if you want to run one of these midgets, you run, because Eric's going to start running one of these midgets for Tracy Trotter from Calico Coatings with hand controls. How could you handle doing it with hand controls?
I don't know. There's no way I could. I know when I drove a midget at the Chili Bowl, I had my hands full and I had my 2 feet moving too. So I don't know, but I mean, Eric's been able to pull it off, over the years racing these already. So, I mean, hell, getting to watch him out there at your guys' racetrack them couple times we were there was a blast. You know, we had a ton of fun out there, but you know, it's there's no way I'd be able to do it. That's for sure.
Well, you know, I look at it and you think, you know, I mean, the story, I mean, you know it, Gordy, I don't know, Don knows it, but, you know, Eric, the day before his 18th birthday, Don, he was paralyzed in a motocross accident. He was riding for Tony. Tony was sponsoring him. He's riding for American Suzuki. He just turned pro and he got paralyzed from the chest down. So a good friend of mine ended up buying Plymouth Speedway just to keep our family involved in racing. And Garrett, who was our youngest, never wanted nothing to do with motorcycles. They put him in a front wheel drive on pavement the first night and he won. I'm like, where in the hell did this come from? You know? And then Mike Fedorchik and Randy Sweet.
Right.
Randy Sweet was a big part of it. Put hand controls in a micro car, a micro sprint for Eric, and he started running micro sprints. And then we went up to the 602, the pro sprints, and they ran these pro sprints. And to this day, we're still a family and we're still racing together, you know?
Yeah. It's a hell of a story. I could tell you that much. And it, you know, obviously that was not a fun time for anybody. You know, I was, you know, right as really I had got to know both Eric and Garrett, you know, and, you know, you would never wish that upon nobody. But I'll tell you what, the way Eric has handled all of it, you know, has been impressive, because he could have very easily just said, you know, he could have gave up on all of it at the end of the day and said, it's, you know, not for him, but you know, he's persevered through a ton, and it's really fun, honestly. You know, like I said, when we come up there and watching your boys race together, you know, I'm sure at one moment you thought, I'll never get to really enjoy that again, and yet, you know, you still get to do it. You get to live it every day.
Yeah. That's why I've always been so impressed with Brad Doty. Brad Doty's always been so impressive with me. The way he handles himself, knowing what had happened. And you look at, you know, it's still one of the greatest moments I ever saw in racing was when Brad came back to Eldora and they put him in the car, you know, for the parade lap at the Kings Royal weekend, and watching Steve and Sammy bumping him.
Yeah.
And he was even in the in-car, and he's talking. He says, "Sammy's just run over me." He said, "This is the coolest thing he's ever." You know, he says, "This is old times." You know,
Oh yeah.
That to me, I remember that night looking at the fans around the place. There wasn't a dry eye in the building.
No.
You know, and that's why I love racing.
Yeah.
It's the people like
Gordy
and the people I've met. It's the relationship you've had off the racetrack mean to me as much as anything being inside the racetrack.
For sure.
Yeah, and you know, that was really, I mean, Eric was, I think it was, I don't know, a few weeks ago, Eric went and ran Eldora, and Tony said, he said, Brad ran, you know, as a pace lap, right? But he said, I don't think there's ever been anybody that's a paraplegic that's ever raced Eldora. And unfortunately, Eric blew up on the second lap of qualifying, so he didn't get a chance to run. But he said, you know, it's really not that bad. He said, you just got to keep it straight, you know? He said, you just got to keep it straight. He said, that's all you got to do. And Randy Sweet made a super, super fast rack for him. So, like, he can go from 10-2 to, like, you know, 11-3, and it's almost full lock, you know?
Yeah.
Irish, you got a good Randy Sweet story for us? You got to have a good Randy Sweet story for us.
Who, me?
Yeah, come on.
Well, yeah, I do. Actually, did you guys know that Randy Sweet worked for Bob and Joyce Newton?
No. I did not know that. No.
Yeah, 1976. I'm on the dock working, right? And Randy's there. The triple disc clutch program that came in play with Hoosier triple disc clutch, that was Randy that put that together, right? So Randy Sweet, I'm with them, and I think it was Terry Newton was with us, and we got a race car, Randy's car on the back. We got a Hoosier van, and we see this guy hitchhiking. Randy's like, well, let's watch this shit, see what's going to happen here. Guy's like, well, what do you want? Guy's like, well, I'd like to have a ride, you know, down the road here. I got to, you know, Randy's like, yeah, no problem. So the guy goes to get in. Randy's like, no, get in the race car. So it was an open trailer. He made the guy get in a race car and then go down the road, riding in the back of the race car. I mean, unbelievable. I can remember one night, Randy shot his gun through the roof of his house. You know, we were having a few beers, and Randy ended up shooting. He took a gun out and shot it through the roof of his house. I mean, crazy shit. I mean, he'll never. And Gordy, you'll remember this. Don't ever forget this. We're at Winchester, Bentley Warren. We're going to go for the world record, right? At Winchester in a super modified. That's before it was paved. And I'll never forget Randy. He goes, air's free. You got to use it. And he had everybody waxing that car. And Gene Lee Gibson goes out and he goes like a 14.4 or 14.3. And he looked at Bentley. He says, Bentley, he said, you got to pump your balls up if you're going to go faster than that. Bentley's like, oh, you're wicked quick. I don't think I could beat that. Bentley goes out there his first lap. He goes a 13.9, you know, and he came back in and Randy said, what do you think? Billy's like, there ain't no more there. That's all there is. He said, your power steering ain't good enough to keep up that fast. So yeah, I mean, Randy was priceless. He was a good guy, you know. When we lost Randy, I mean, of course, when him and Scott got together, holy shit, that was bad.
It was awesome.
You know, that nothing good could happen that night, you know.
He drove at the World 100, and I'll never forget it. He pulls in the pit area in that Cadillac that he had, and he had a rocking chair that was bungee corded to the top. He drove right in the pitter, and he said, here's my chair. I want it put on top of the trailer for I could watch the races all weekend.
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And that just told you. And he wasn't a guy to make a scene or anything. But I know that Bart Hartman always told me, because Bart always used, you know, Randy's, all the steering components. And even Bart always said to me, he says, people have no idea how smart that guy is.
I'm telling you.
They have no idea.
Yeah. He just had so much common sense, you know. I mean, there was a lot of common sense with Randy, you know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's the guys that have engineered the parts that we use on these race cars every day. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, they were smart, but they weren't overthinking things. You know, that's what happens to a lot of guys is they were, you know, they understood point A, point B, how do I get there in the most sensible way? And yeah, I mean, obviously they built trick shit and did a lot of cool things, but they built parts that made, you know, make the most sense for our race cars. And those guys, yeah, they are thinking in a whole different realm than we are, I would say. But at the same time, like you just said, they use common sense at the same point, you know, to build everything that they did. You know, I got to go to Randy's shop one time. We were racing the Summer Nationals, and we were racing right up by there and had an off day. And I was like, man, I'd love to just go by the shop and just check it out. And, you know, it's so cool when you walk into Sweet Manufacturing, you walk in the main floor and there sits the pool table and the World 100 trophy hanging over as the light, you know, and it is one of the coolest things in the entire world. And that floor you can eat off of around the pool table. Now, I'm not going to say that for the rest of the shop because there's a ton of racks and, you know, everything you could ever need. But around that pool table and that area was spick and span. It was like almost like a pearly gate moment. You walk in just like, oh, and it was like, wow, you know, it was so cool. But
Scott was like a son to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, and I mean,
so Gordy, did you ever know Tommy that worked there for Randy?
Yep.
Tommy was his right. I always said this: Randy always had the vision, and Tommy always manufactured it and made it reality. You know, Randy'd come up with these crazy ideas. Yeah, okay, Tommy, can you make it? Yeah, I'll get on it, you know, and Tommy would do it. I mean, Tommy was probably one of the best kept secrets up there at Sweet Manufacturing. I mean, he crewed with Randy. I'll never forget one time we were at Berlin and Stewart come up to run a late model up there. And Randy was telling him how he's got to run the track, you know, and he said, you got to put the left front right on the drain coming off of turn 4. And I'll never forget, Stewart won that night in Randy's car. And it was a lot of fun that night. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, you've got to live probably some of the cooler racing experiences than most ever will, you know, even dream of, just because of all the, you know, I mean, obviously the people that you've got to be, you know, friends with and, you know, business partners with over the years. And, you know, like you said, you know, I mean, you've done NASCAR, you've done drag racing, you've done dirt racing, you've like, I mean, hell, you just told us a story that Jeff Gordon drove you to a house. I mean, I don't know how many people could ever say that. So,
well, and you know, the other thing too, Hoosier made a splash with moto tires. I did the moto stuff. I mean, I know at one time, Ricky Carmichael, I know Ricky real well. And Ricky's like, hey man, he says, you know, we got this Triumph deal going. He said, if Hoosier's really in this thing for the long haul, he goes, I'll help you, brother. But he said, I don't want to burn any bridges with Dunlop that I can't go back to him. And I couldn't give him that commitment, you know. But yeah, I mean, Ricky Pastrana, I mean, it was funny. We were at PRI this past year. Pastrana was a guest speaker, right, at PRI. So he sends me a text. He goes, "Hey," he said, "why don't you come down and be at my table for breakfast? You can sit around, all of us." Well, I get there to his table, and guess what? It's just him and I sitting at his table. That was it. And we started going back, telling some old stories because, like I said, he had the Nitro Circus, right? But he wanted to do a fundraiser for Eric after he got hurt here at Plymouth, and he couldn't do a Nitro Cross or Nitro Circus, but he did Nitro Cross. So he brought in Street Bike Tommy and Jolene and all the people from there, and we had a blast. And it was funny because Travis was like, "Hey, Irish, you want to start selling some beer?" I'm like, "Yeah, we can sell some beer at the track. What are you gonna do?" He goes, "Watch this." He goes up and he takes a funnel up there and he starts doing how many people can shotgun beers on the funnel. Oh my God, just to do it with Pastrana. People just started buying beer and buying beer and buying beer, He goes, "If you're going to do this, they're normally $5. It's $10 if you're going to do this with me." And they pay $10 to do it, Gordy, I've had this idea that I want to do. And, I'm helping out here at Swan Lake at the resort out here. Did you guys ever stay out here when you came out here?
We never stayed, but we were out there. We've been there 3 times. I think the one time we came, they were completely redoing the inside of the bar area and all of that. They were just finishing all of that stuff up.
Yeah. So I'm helping out there, and how cool would it be? And I'm gonna pull this off. Is that we have a golf outing of champions in motorsports, right? And we're going to do it for a charity. We do it for a charity, and you have all these different people that I know in motorsports come and play. I'll get Dale. I'll call Junior and say, "Hey, man, this is for a charity. Come on, Harvick, you got to come up here." And it's going to go. And how many people would say, "Hey, I want to spend X amount of dollars because I want to golf with them guys," right? And it all goes towards charity. And that, Kevin and Dale, after their career at Cup, they have given back a lot. And I got to tell you, I was talking to Kevin the other day. Harvick calls the other day, and we're talking about Keelan because I'm telling you, his kid, he's the next real deal. There's no doubt, right?
Yep.
And they were out at Colorado, and Keelan goes out and he qualifies, and he's got quick time. So Kevin's like, he comes down to me and says, "Oh, now, Dad, the track's pretty gripped up, so you probably want to do this and do this and do this." So Kevin goes out and out qualifies Keelan. Keelan comes in and says, "I'm never helping you again, Dad." That's it. That was it.
Yep, I guarantee it. Yeah. Well, he had to repay back something because I can only imagine the knowledge Keelan gets from Kevin. I mean,
that kid is he's amazing, and he's so polite. I think Delena's got him trained that he comes in and he says, "Mr. Saunders." I said, "Listen, my name's Irish." "Yes, sir, Mr. Saunders." Irish. I mean, he's just the kid is so polite. It's unbelievable. Yeah, and he's going to make it. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched the Cars Tour races and stuff like that. I get enjoyment watching a lot of that stuff. I'm just a racing fan in general. All aspects of motorsports, but when now that Junior's taken over the Cars Tour stuff, and that obviously that helps brand it, but the racing is really good. Honestly, it really is, and there's a lot of talented guys that are in there. Obviously, I mean, younger, older, all of it, but they do put on a great show.
Yeah, it's very entertaining, right? And they got good races, and the cars are pretty darn equal there, but I don't know. It's again, it's a different world than what it was. I hope we can get back, I had to have Schrader tell the story about how his son Sheldon got his name, right? And did you know that, Gordy?
I think I know this one.
Yeah, so we were at Nazareth in 1982, Silver Crown Championship. Ron Schumann was leading the thing, and Schrader was running second. He blew up, so he goes to Ben Leba, who had the Ben's Tire Clinic champ car. He was our distributor. "Benny, my car blew up. Can I run the car?" And he's like, "You got to ask the big fella," which was Sheldon. So he goes down there. And Schrader's like, "Sheldon, can I use your car? We got a shot at winning this championship." "Schrader, I'll let you use my car as long as you name your firstborn son after me." How he got his name, Sheldon Schrader.
Yeah, I have heard that one. I'll tell you what, if anybody could spend 10 minutes with Kenny Schrader in their entire lives, He tells some of the greatest stories you have ever heard in your entire lives. And I was fortunate because obviously we all grew up in, they grew up in this area, and my dad and Kenny Schrader and the Wallaces are the best of friends. And I'll tell you one of the coolest moments of my entire life. The first summer national race I ever won at Macon Speedway, Kenny Wallace was there. He hung out with me all night. But I got a text message at about 2 a.m. that night from Kenny Schrader. I didn't even know he had my number, mind you. But he said, "Hey Gordy," or he said, "I'm sorry, he didn't say hey Gordy." He said, "Hey hero, it's Kenny. Congratulations, you're officially a legend." And I was like, the fact that at 2 a.m. he had to text me that after all the,
That's
it was so cool. And now we always text each other back and forth when each other's wins. And I always just say, congrats legend. And he'll say good job hero or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. It's just cool shit.
Well, I'll never forget the night before we raced, right? And we were in the bar and Larry Dixon comes in and he walks in, and that's before Ken and Ann were married, and Ann is bouncing biscuits off Ben Laba's head, right? I mean, there's a lot of alcohol that was involved that night. And next thing I know, Dixon goes out because he forgot, and he was in there for 4 hours. He forgot to shut his car off. It was running underneath the lobby canopy. He left it sit there running for 4 hours. And I was like, man, it was bad. And I remember somebody, they jumped the fence of the pool and they lost their balance, and there was no water in the pool because it was wintertime, right? It was the 1st of December, and a guy drops to the bottom of the pool. I'll never forget that. Oh my God. It was unbelievable.
Oh,
Unbelievable. I'll never forget too, another real quick story. Stuart and I were at Speed Week at New Smyrna. He's running a modified. And he dumped Tommy Baldwin that night. It was the first night, and everybody's, they're booing him and all this other stuff. And I mean, he somebody wanted to fight. He had a brand new painted helmet, and he threw it down on the ground because he's ready to fight. And the cop said, "You get him and you get him out of here." So I threw him in the rental car with me, and we're driving back. And I look over at him, and he's kind of teared up. I'm like, "Dude, pull it together. What the hell is your problem?" He goes, "Dude, I've never been booed before." I said, "Well, listen, this is 9 nights." I said, "You got 8 more nights to turn them boos into cheers." And by the end of Speed Week, him and Teddy Christopher, I mean, they were best friends, and everybody loved him. Absolutely loved him. And, there again, you guys there's only a handful. You never forgot where you came from, and I'm so proud that you haven't done that. Like him, he never forgot, some of them have, but, I was just talking to Kurt Smith this afternoon, Sammy's dad, and he told me, he goes, "Irish, if you ever want Sammy to get in one of them midgets, let me know. We need to stay involved in short track racing." I said, "That's great. I love hearing that." And I'm sitting there thinking, there's another one that's coming up through the ranks. I'd love to get in a midget, and that's Wyatt Miller, LW, and Kelly's son. I think I'd be neat to have him in there too.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's on the fast track.
Let's try to keep the next generation like us older people were, right, and keep it fun and entertaining.
Hey, Irish, how good is this? How good is this Jacob Denny kid? How good can he be?
Oh, I think he's really good. I think he's got some talent, and if it just don't go to his head, I think he's going to be great.
Yeah.
He seems to be the one that we're watching. That Keith Coons is just flat out saying. He said he could be as good. He said he's the next Christopher Bell.
Yeah. I mean, it's.
He said he drives a lot like him. He acts a lot like him. And the other thing is, from what I understand, he hasn't come from much.
Right.
He's had to work he's making all the right steps, and he's doing it the hard way, and he's motivated.
Yeah, well, that's another reason why I'm a big Priest. I'm a big Ryan Priest supporter. I remember Ryan. I mean, he gets it. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's right there. He hasn't forgot where he came from. He'll spend time with people. He'll do autographs. He'll do whatever it takes. And those kind of guys are really hard to find anymore. They really are. I mean, they just again, we talked back to the deal where it used to be come in there during the week, and now he goes and runs his modified at New Smyrna, and he's got his own souvenir deal, but he'll go there and sign autographs, and a lot of those other Cup guys are not around.
Yeah. He's definitely one of the few that's in Cup that has that work in the shop on your own stuff type style. Which is a kind of a rarity, I think, now in the Cup garage for sure. There's not a lot of those guys are not the ones that are going to be getting their hands dirty during the week, but there's a few of them that are left, and that's what you need, and that's what at the end of the day, that's what fans connect with. They want to see that those guys that strap them helmets on are also just the same as the rest of them. There's the same as the people that sit in the grandstands that are, that still work just as hard to get to where they're at, and aren't just a guy who kind of got his way paved for him. And those guys, those are my favorite types of guys. I mean, I root for those guys every week because those, I know how hard it is. You guys know how hard it is to, build a career in racing if you start with nothing, right? I'm not saying it's easy if you have everything in the beginning, because racing's not easy, but the guys who are willing to put those extra hours in, who know every component on their race cars and can do those things, those guys, you love to see them succeed, because there's a bunch of them in NASCAR that couldn't tell you 10 parts that are on their race cars and what they do and how they work. That type of racer, I think, has definitely gone by the wayside. They're still out there. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a changed aspect of that sport.
Hey, so Gordy, I got to ask, are you planning on running the Chili Bowl this year?
Yep, my plan is, the only thing I got hanging on that is I've got some exciting stuff happening with my family, and we're going to be welcoming another baby girl into the world, and the due date is the week of the Chili Bowl. So
congratulations, man.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that this one's a speed racer and wants to come out a few weeks early so I can go race the Chili Bowl. But if not, I don't know. We'll see. I think my Jeff Taylor with Rockwell, has me and Nick, and we talked last week. I think our plan is to run Millbridge right before World Finals to get some more laps, and then that way we'll be prepared for the Chili Bowl again. But I plan on doing the Chili Bowl again if everything works out.
Well, I got to tell you, Gordy, and then the Gateway Nationals. You are very entertaining, Gordy, at the Gateway Nationals. I want you to know. I don't even know who in the hell won it last year, but I know all the shit you did. And it was good. That's what I tuned in for. I mean, we're sitting here watching. I'm like, let's see what Gordy's got to say now, because he's going to say something, and it was very entertaining, Gordy. I got to tell you, the racing's good. I mean, your dad does a hell of a job. You guys do a hell of a job getting that thing up and getting it prepped and getting it ready to go. But damn, the entertainment is what it's worth. I mean, that's what it's all about.
I know. I love that. I love that part of the dome. We had Amelia Eisenschenk, Donnie's niece, was parked next to us down there, and they had never been there, and they had their T-shirt booth set up right next to mine, and she said, we need to figure out a way to sell some T-shirts. I was like, well, just give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. We'll figure out a way to get some people up there. And I texted Ben Shelton and Dustin Jarrett and said, hey, I need to get on the broadcast for a little bit. I was like, I'm like, hell, I didn't race on Thursday. I'm like, nobody even knows I'm here, even though I'm racing tomorrow. So I'm like, I need to make sure people know that we're over here. So, you know what? I think honestly, it's no different than when Flo allowed me to do the broadcasting at the Chili Bowl. That deal came because we were standing there in the expo at like 1 a.m. drinking with the Flo guys, and I said, why don't you let me get on the microphone tomorrow? And they're like, hell, what do you want to do? You want to do heat race interviews or qualifiers? I'm like, I want to do the qualifiers. That way I get some good ones. And and the first thing they told me when I put the headset on is, please let's not get too far off the rails. So I was like, okay. And the guy chimed back in. He said, well, I guess before we let you start, how many drinks have you had? I said, well, I'm in the middle of my second, so I'm just getting warmed up. And they were all laughing. And the last interview I had was Tyler Edwards, who I did not know Tyler Edwards. Right. And when he rolled up, I looked at him. I thought, man, this guy, he looks rough and tough like I do. He's got a beard and a long hair. I'm like, I guarantee he drinks beer. So I'm like, well, what are they going to do me now? Kick me off the broadcast? It's the last qualifier. So him and I are good buddies now. Funny as that could be, we were actually hanging out up at Knoxville a couple weeks ago together over at Dingus and having a good time. So I just, one of the things about racing to me is that I just have such a passion for it, but from a million different aspects in a million different ways. It's not just because I'm a race car driver. It's not just because mom and dad have a racetrack. It's not just because we have the Dirt Parlor. It's, I love all of it. I love all the fans and all the people who come there. And it's like they should be entertained. There should be fun shit happening, and people should be giving good interviews and good insight, and you should be messing around, hanging out and whatnot. So yeah, I love that part of it. And the dome is like, I don't know. I feel like that event was built for me. I know the first year there, they had me on the dance cam.
Well, you got out of the car. They got out of the car the one year you're ready to kick somebody's ass.
Yeah,
right off the bat. It was like,
yeah. And so I don't know. Like that stuff hypes me up. I just, it bleeds right into me, and I just can't help myself. I just go full bore when that happens.
I got to break in here real quick, Irish, on this this year with Cody opening up the tire rule, and letting American racers in there with Hoosier. I think it's great. I think it's good that we have competition, a little in there. And the one thing that we've always and you brought it up from the minute we got on this podcast. You talked about how you had Goodyear and you've seen different things and how you guys got into it and everything else. And the one thing about, we're watching a lot of it right now, and you're hearing a lot of complaints. Logan Schuchart last week at the World of Outlaws show, when he got out of the dash, when he made the comments right on television, and he said, I don't know if my car is any good or I ain't worth a shit or whatever, but I do know this much. I got 2 new tires on for this dash. One grew a ½ inch and the other one shrunk a ½ inch. So it's pretty hard for me to tell how good my car is when this stuff's happening. And you just keep hearing about it. It's like, well, we only have 1 tire out there. The Hoosier's the only tire on the World of Outlaws, the only deal on the Lucas deal. And what are your thoughts on some of these comments are being made with only having 1 manufacturer basically in charge of these series? You got anything to say about that?
Well, I
maybe the other ones don't want to have anything to do with it too, for all we know, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that, but I do know that one thing. I'm going to go back years and years ago. They used to be able to say, okay, you want to come here and play in our sandbox, right? So here's the thing. We're going to make and back in, this is a long time ago. We're going to have a $90 tire rule, right? You can run any brand. You can run a BF Goodrich, a Ching Ching, whatever the hell you want, but it can't sell for more than $90 at the track. It has to be readily available at the track, right? For $90. And then somebody's like, well, that's price fixing now. And it got into the legal part of it. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm not afraid of competition at all, right? Not at all. I look at it this way. If my shit's good, you're going to run it, right? I mean, if it sucks, then it's my fault and I got to do better to make it better for you, right? And that I went into it all the time. That's how I took every day at Hoosier. I went in there. If we weren't up to par, guess what? I don't want to get these phone calls from Gordy Gundaker saying my right rear tire took off 2 inches. No shit, Gordy. So tell me what you did. And then maybe it's something you did, but if not, then guess what? I was on the phone with engineering saying, hey, wait a minute. You better look at doing this or this or this or this because you got a problem, right? So I like the competition part of it. I really do, because I feel that competition makes, as long as you can keep the cost down, right? I mean, you don't need building tires out of Kevlar, right? And driving the price up this high, right? But give them the best possible product you can at a reasonable price. Because like I said, from the very beginning, this is a hobby, and how many guys are like, geez, Gordy, I'd like to put a right rear on, but I just can't afford it. God, I had to take the kid to the doctor this week, and I just don't have the money. And my wife's on my ass right now because I spent too much money on the car now. hell, I had to cut back on groceries this week, and and school's coming up, and I got to get school supplies, so I can't do that. So I like the competition part of it. I really do. What Cody's done down there, it'll be interesting to see what happens, But again, if it's open competition and you got a tire that's going to be a second quicker, holy shit. And they charge $800 for that tire. I'm just using that number, right? $800 for that tire. Gordy, you're forced into buying it, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So I don't know. I mean, I always like the,
Right.
I always like, just like the IMCA thing with the engine package. I think that was a great package. That's why we did that with the Focus midgets, right? And the All-Star midgets is we did that package to try to keep the cost down, I mean, it might be a shock rule too. There was wasn't there some
Yes,
series, Gordy,
absolutely.
that had a shock rule, a shock cost rule or something
Well,
at one point in time? Or Don?
Well, there's still that now, like in like your UMPB mods and those things. I want to say IMCA does something along those lines as well, that you can only have so much, like you can only buy a certain package, which eliminates that over cost of letting a guy go spend a bunch on a bunch of technology. I can't remember. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there's a modified series that does it, which is great. It's honestly, it's a smart way to do it, because it takes out the guy who's got the extra $200,000-$300,000 to spend, that is willing to spend that to get that extra tenth or two. And that's half the trouble we have now in late model racing is if you go buy a set of shocks straight from Bilstein for a Longhorn right now, you're $7,000-$8,000 for a standard package, and that's fucking hard. That's a lot of money. And that's just the set you're going to put on the race car. That doesn't count the spare set you need, because if you knock one off, you got to have one. And that doesn't count.
And you got to have a $7,000 or $8,000 dyno in there too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to
pay that guy to get on the telephone. We talked about that little consultant fee.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it now, and they've, the problem with it is they've let it get so far out of hand now, right? Like 2 years ago they outlawed a shock that was it's called an inerter, and
I remember that,
right? And that was a big deal, right? That was this massive thing that was
it's
like
F1, right? Like
yeah.
Formula 1
well, they're like, we're going to save a bunch of money here because these guys are building these shocks. So it's like, okay, well, why don't we do that with the rest of them? Why do we got to have triple adjustable this and double adjustable that? Like, I've said it for a long time. Let's just go back to some old school pro shocks, some 3.5s and some 4.6s, and you get 4 springs and you bolt them on a race car and you figure it out. Like, I don't know. I bet I guarantee. Now, I'm not saying you could just do that, because you could not. You couldn't just bolt them on our race cars and it would work, because there's a lot of other things that have resulted with us changing all these shock packages. But we have put it to where, how do you afford that? Okay, so by the time you buy 2 sets of shocks, you buy your spring smasher, you buy your shock dyno, and you pay a consulting fee, hell, you're $30,000, $40,000 in just to get there. And then it's like, okay, well, now what? Like, so I don't know. And don't get me wrong, obviously there's plenty of guys who can afford it. I mean, hell, we got every trailer in the pit area. If you go to the World 100 in a couple weeks, everyone's going to have both of them in it. And and my dad says this all the time, and he's 100% right, is we are our own worst enemy when it comes to this.
Yeah.
And the reasoning being, as you're saying, right? Some of these guys treat this as a hobby. Some guys treat it as they're racing for a living. When you combine those two, you run into the issues. It's like, well, I know that I'm going to spend this much money. I'm okay with it. Some guys are not okay with it, and they, and you bicker about it, and nothing ever gets done about it, because if you don't spend that money, well, guess what? The next guy down the road, he's going to spend it. Mm-hmm. And so that's hard. It's a hard line to teeter, because it's like, well, which way do you go? But I think there's a lot better way to do it than what we're doing now.
I agree 100%. I remember Doug Wolfgang told me, this has been a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Wolfie, and he was talking about the adjustable shocks and all this. And I said, we're just going to go back to straight old twin tube shocks, keep it simple, right? And Wolfie's like, Donnie Kreitz. He said, I was at Williams Grove or Port Royal, one of them tracks. And he told Kreitz, says, Kreitz, He goes, I'm going to whip your ass tonight. As a matter of fact, I'm going to lap you in the feature. And Kreitz is like, there ain't no way you're going to lap me. And Wolfie's like, yeah, I will. I will. And Wolfie said, sure as shit. He was leading the thing and he lapped Kreitz with like 5 laps to go in the feature. He lapped him. So Kreitz came down to him. He says, well, how did you know you were going to lap me tonight, Doug? And Doug's like, well, you got all that rebound, all these knobs and shit you got to do. He goes, you're worrying about doing that shit. All I'm worrying about is beating you. He said, and I beat you, you know? And he was 100% right. I mean, Wolfie, God, if have you ever had Wolfie on your podcast yet, Gordy?
No. I don't. I've actually never met him.
You know what's
to
funny
be honest,
is we were talking about this the other day, the fact that we had John Gill on the show.
Yeah.
And we've had more responses by bringing some of the past guys on. And we had Tim Green was going to come on, the sprint car driver in the 70, Tim was going to come on. And he was up in the mountains. He had bad reception because we were going to have he had no idea that Tim Green and Kevin Gundaker had spent a lot of time together in Iowa, and they were both charged up about it. It was going to be epic.
Eventually,
but yes,
happen.
we want Wolfie on the show. Absolutely,
Wolfie is awesome. He tells a story about he was at the Knoxville Nationals, and he says we go out there. He said Davy Brown, he's driving for Weicker. He says, and we're not going worth a shit. He said, we're terrible. He said, we just can't get going. All of a sudden, he said, this car hooks up, and he said, I drive right to the front. Then they had a red flag. Davy Brown comes out there and said, Wolfie, right front torsion arm fell off. He goes, it was one of those spline ones, or not the spline ones, but it was the tapered ones, right? So they put the torsion arm back on. He goes back out. He's junk. He's terrible. But guess what happens? It falls off again. He goes from the back where he was running terrible to the front and wins the Knoxville National.
Nice.
Unbelievable. Never heard that.
Oh yeah. Wolfie's got a million stories. I mean, they're great. And I'll never forget one year, Wolfie and I went on the Ohio Sprint Week together, right? Him and I are riding and stuff. And, every night, Wolfie would go around and he'd say, hey, Don, Gordy, thanks for working so hard tonight, man. We finished 5th tonight, but by God, keep digging, and we're going to beat their ass. He did this every night. I said, Wolf, you thank those guys every night like that. What's up? He goes, listen, Irish, you show them a little bit of gratitude, a little bit of appreciation, they're going to dig themselves super deep, and he is 100% right, and I use that today with anything that you do. Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable he did that.
Yeah. Well, and it's there's a reason he had a career like he did. It wasn't just, when you have a long-standing career where you win a lot of big races, it's not just because you're a great race car driver, it's because you surround yourself with the right people, you build a team out of the people around you, and that's how you win races, right? It's like, it's not just a one-person show. Don't get me wrong, we've said it before. The race car drivers get all, I think we said it when Jake Argo was on here. The race car drivers get the glory out of it, but behind the scenes, there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people that are a part of all of that. And if they don't feel like they're getting some love out of it, they're not going to keep working for you. They'll go find somebody else that appreciates what they do. Yeah,
I agree 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Well, Irish, honestly, man, the stories that we've heard, is probably some of the most fun we've had on here.
It's been
easily.
great.
And we appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with us, and just getting to talk with you. In general, it's always fun. There's nothing more that I love than when I look down and my phone's ringing and it says Irish on it. For one, it's like, if I don't answer that one, I don't answer any other call. I promise you. So I always answer when Irish calls, that's for sure. But we really appreciate you coming on here and hanging out with us. And you let me know about that midget deal, because I'm 100% in on that.
Gordy, I got to tell you one more story real quick. I just thought of this one. Kevin Olson. You remember Kevin Olson, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we put on a race back here in Plymouth, Indiana. We call it the Hoosier Autumn Classic, right? It was a twin 50-lap midget race, and Olson was in town. Well, we got done. He came in a day early, and we were going up to the local South Bend Cubs minor league ball team for a deal, and the Seymours was with us from out in Marlboro. They brought their midgets out too. They were racing it, and we're going down this back road, and we see this dead raccoon along the side of the road. So Olson's like, stop. You got to pick up this raccoon. I'm like, what? What do you mean? He goes, I'm going to put it in this box. So we pick up this dead raccoon. We put it in this box. We're driving a Hoosier van, right? We go up to there, and Seymour's meet us on the sidewalk. And Olson's like, hey, take that box in there. He said, we got to take it into the ballpark. So they open it up and they see the raccoon and they just absolutely lose their shit, right? So they put the box back in. So Olson and I, we go down and we took it out of there because it's stunk like hell. So we take it out of the van and we put it out in the parking lot. Well, here's this guy with a shopping cart and he's collecting aluminum cans. So Olson gives him the old, hey, he says, go down there. He said, there's a box down there. He said, it's full of aluminum cans. You can have them. So the guy goes down there and all of a sudden I hear, holy shit. And all these cans fly everywhere. The guy opens it up and he sees this dead raccoon in there, And that was just some of the shit that Olson did, Unbelievable, the stories with him.
Oh gosh, you know what? And the reason those guys are that way is because they used to be able to get away with a lot of shit back in the days. I mean, the things you guys could do.
The Hoosier Dome. We were at the Hoosier Dome at a midget race, and Olson steals one of the usher's jackets, right? And it says usher on it. So we go to a gentleman's club afterwards, right? And we walk in there, and all of a sudden we're like, where the hell's Olson at? And all of a sudden we hear, go, 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 go. And there was a pole, and the girls would come down this pole. Well, guess who's up there on the pole and comes down the pole? It's Olson. Olson slides down the pole, and they grab him, and they're going to toss him out of this place. And as he's going out, he says, I'll sue. I'm going to sue. I'm going to sue. I mean, those are just, you can't make that shit up,
No, I'm telling you, you can't. Oh, gosh.
So are you going to Indy this week for the U.S. Nationals?
I don't know. I might, because, I retired from Hoosier, but I got a few other gigs, and I got to get a couple plugs in here, if it's all right.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, anybody that wants to golf, the best kept secret in Northern Indiana is Swan Lake Resort. You can go on there, swanlakeresort.com, check it out. 2 18-hole golf courses, 100-room hotel, restaurant. It's got a big like ballroom that they can put 500 people in a ballroom, so you can do weddings, all kind of stuff. So I'm helping out there. And then the other thing I'm doing is Dragon Racing Fuel. So Dragon, you remember back in the day, Don and Gordy, you might remember the old Torco Racing Fuel company?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
So Torco, Evan Knoll had it, and Chuck Newton, no relation to Bob Newton, bought this back in 2007. And we ran his fuel when we were racing motocross, right? And when he saw I retired, he goes, Irish, he said, I need some help. He said, we just got to get the word out, Like, yeah, okay, no problem. So Bob Newton's wife's name was Joyce. Chuck Newton's wife's name is Joyce. So I'm like, there's a sign. So I've been helping the Newtons with Dragon, getting the word out, about the fuel. And they got good stuff. And they're just a good family to deal with. They have passion about racing. They understand this is a hobby. They keep their costs down, and they give you good, consistent performance, which is really important. And then I'm kind of helping a couple people with GM Performance with this crate motor. I want to look at running one of these crate motors, these 525s in a sprint car for the little 500. I mean, it's a $10,000 motor, all aluminum. We got an Outlaw late model series. We run on pavement up here. The series is saying, hey, you run that crate motor, that 525, we'll give you a 200-pound weight break and no left side weight. So we're looking at doing that too. So I'm still involved in racing, no doubt,
Yeah.
I just figured with Smoke, the year that Smoke's having, and him being your buddy, you might be down there rooting him on to win the U.S. Nationals.
Well, yeah, I'm probably going to show up. Because I asked him, I said, what the hell night should I come down here? He goes, Friday night. He said, that's when they light the candles,
Yeah.
But it was really crazy because we were down there for that test, and Matt Hagan had a brand new injection lock up, and the motor was wide open, and he damn near crashed and blew the motor up. Stuart looked at me and goes, well, that was a costly one. So I'm figuring like $60,000 or something like that, but it is what it is, as long as he's having fun.
Yeah.
I'll be I don't miss it. I'll be down there for all four. I get in town Friday and stay all the way through Monday.
Well, Gordy, you'll have to give Don my number and have him give me a shot if he gets down.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll shoot you guys
I
a
wish
text.
he would go
again.
with me. I wish he would go with me.
Gordy, where are you racing at this weekend?
We run Wheatland this weekend, Friday, Saturday, down at Lucas.
And then next week is the World.
Yep. World 100 next week. So, yeah, Irish. What are you doing? The end of September. I think it'd be the 26th, 27th, 28th, maybe, or something like that. We've got a 2-day World of Outlaw show at Tri City, World Outlaw Late Models.
You think I can get a ticket to get in?
I think I might know somebody that can get you a ticket.
All right, I might have to come down for that.
Well, you come on down and come hang out with us.
Because, my whole family's always said, we need to go down and see the Gundakers. They come up and see us. We need to go down and see the Gundakers.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bring the family. Come on down.
You want me to do your tires for you, too?
Yeah, absolutely.
He'll let you even pay for them if you want to.
Yeah.
I got my own kids racing. I can't do that.
Oh, man.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, I can't thank you enough, man. I've really enjoyed this, man. I can't thank you enough for coming on the Dirt Parlor with us, man. We're pretty pumped up. Our show is really growing, and we get to talk about dirt racing and meet different people. It's a dream.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about, man. It's all about the relationships in racing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it sure is. So, Irish, once again, man, thank you so much for coming on here and visiting with us. And we'll definitely have to do this again soon. Yes. I'm sure there'll be more we could talk about.
There's stories we could tell, but it'll get people divorced, and I ain't going to do that.
No doubt about that.
That's
so,
great.
All right, Irish. Well, you have a good night, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.